Maayong gabi. My name is John Neri. I'm editor-in-chief of Inquirer.net. And with me is our co-host, the chief of reporters of Inquirer.net, Christine Sabilio.
Thank you to everyone who is watching right now. Our guest today is very in demand and in fact very timely because of the interesting and well applauded privileged speech that she gave at the Senate this afternoon. Before I introduce her, I want to give some 3 things that you might not know about her. So number 1 is that she took up history in college in De La Salle University. History and political science. And number 2, according to her staff, she cooks a really good laing and Bicol Express. And number 3, she's one of the country's top election lawyers, and she served as counsel to Coco Pimentel when he filed for his electoral protest case in 2007.
And also Alan.
And Alan Cayetano. So we have a lot of trivia there. Ladies and gentlemen, the very feisty Senator Leila de Lima.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Time. And good evening to the viewers, to the listeners. And thank you for having me in your program.
Thank you, Senator, and welcome to the Inquirer Hot Seat. It's a milestone for you today, your first privileged speech, and I think it's safe to say it was a controversial one. We have many questions. We'll spend many minutes talking about this. But if you will allow me, I'd like to ask first a question that I've heard other people also ask. What made you run for the Senate? Have you always thought of serving in high office?
No. Everything that happened to me in my public life has really been unexpected. That's what happened to me when I was first appointed CHR chair. Never expected it. The same thing. And I was appointed DOJ secretary. And when I decided to run, that was also a surprise thing. I was actually hesitant. But then again, I reflected on it, and because my choice would just be retire early or go back to private practice. But after all that I went through, CHR, DOJ, and all of those high-profile cases that I handled, the controversies that I've been engaged in, going back to private life, going back to private practice, seemed to be
Too tame.
Too tame.
What was the deciding point, Senator?
Well, of course, the president talked to me. President
Aquino.
talking about Pinoy
Mm-hmm.
and former Secretary Mar Rojas. So they encouraged me to run, and they said that sayang naman. Effectively, they said sayang naman. Just consider your Senate run as just a continuation of what you've been doing, your advocacies, and also your ideas, especially about justice system reforms.
Ma'am, how has it been so far as a legislator, as a senator, and did you expect to get the Justice Committee?
Well, it's actually the natural choice, and I understand no one else was aspiring for it.
No one else wanted.
Yes, that's what I know. It's a natural choice for me because it's like it's a throwback to my CHR and DOJ days. This happened to be both justice and human rights happened to be my core competencies because of my previous posts.
But I understand that in Senator Alan Cayetano's campaign to become Senate President, the choice of Justice Committee Chair was actually a crucial one. And it was, if I understand correctly, anybody but Leila.
I read about it that he was opposing my chairmanship. He was saying something to the effect that why would we allow her to handle this committee when we know about her stand on very major proposed legislative measures, and that especially the death penalty, the reimposition of death penalty, the lowering of the age of criminal responsibility. My position on those matters are common knowledge. And so I think that was his point. Why me as the chair of commission of the Committee on Justice and Human Rights, when the committee would be tackling these very major pieces of proposed legislation by this administration. So that's the
Was there any
line about being an obstructionist, which I strongly disagree.
Was there any viable challenger for Justice Committee Chair?
None that I know of. That's what I learned. No one else was interested in the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. I don't know. I may be wrong. That's the information.
So normally we ask like what the Senate dynamics are in choosing someone to head a certain committee, but in this case, so it was just because you were the only one who wanted it.
Maybe that's one of the reasons. Well, Senate President Coco was telling me that he's actually able to explain to the president that that because he was being eyed as a Senate president, he was vying for the Senate presidency, and then when they were talking about chairmanships, he was saying that he would want a Senate that would run like a well-oiled machine. And therefore it's important that those chairing or heading committees would be within the competencies or the particular interests and advocacies of the senators concerned.
Speaking of well-oiled machine, I think this is the time for us to ask about the privilege speech.
Yeah, so we've been talking about the Justice Committee, your past experience with human rights, and I guess there's no point in delaying discussing the much awaited privilege speech from you. We've been wanting to guest you since last week, but we knew that you were working on this, on the resolution, on the inquiry on the summary killings related to the anti-drug campaign of the administration. What prompted you to file this resolution and give such a speech?
Well, I had to file that resolution because the facts are there, the statistics are there. By the day, the statistics are growing. You have your own kill list.
Yeah.
Inquirer has your own,
More than 400.
has its own kill list. Other media networks has its own list. CHR, even the PNP. Of course, there is some variance in the figures. Now, I don't see any reason why not. I don't see any reason why we should not conduct this inquiry. That's why I was a little aghast by the statement of Senator Alan kanina when he was delivering his own privileged speech, is that konti pa lang daw. I have here some transcript of exactly what he said. Bakit po napakarami ng pinapatay ngayon? Actually po, hindi marami, konti pa. What is the threshold?
Yeah.
How many more killings are we willing
Do
to
we need?
bear? How many more killings do we need to see before we act? What is the threshold? Is it hundreds, thousands, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000? We don't have to wait for that. As expressed by Senator Riza earlier, one dead body is just one too many. Particularly the cases of mistaken identity, the cases of just being there at the wrong place at the wrong time. There are more and more cases of that, and I was also a bit aghast also when the point about we should instead attend to other urgent matters, not this inquiry being proposed by Senator De Lima. What could be more urgent than looking into these killings, particularly of the innocent ones? I don't see that point. Although I do agree that we need also to focus on measures that will strengthen the criminal justice system.
That's,
I do agree
Mhm.
that it's because of the general frustration of the people that there seemed to be, apathy and a sort of a general acceptance
Mhm.
of what is happening. That's exactly the same environment, atmosphere, at the time that the DTS phenomenon
Mhm.
was there.
Mhm.
That's why CHR had to investigate.
It's also possible that people might just be waiting for a provocation, a spark, like perhaps your speech.
As I mentioned in my speech, there may not be a general outrage
Mhm.
yet, but we could also already see some undercurrents, some sentiments already. And that's why I had to highlight the fact that there is this group of UP students,
Mhm.
no position, no power, but they took the initiative. They're doing that,
Mhm.
demonstrating they started this hashtag cardboard justice.
Mhm.
They're not in any position. They don't have power. They don't, they're just ordinary students, and yet they're acting. But what about us? So I actually emphasize that.
Did you choose the date? Did you choose to speak today, August 2?
Well, I did intend to deliver a privileged speech as a prelude
Mhm.
to the Senate inquiry, because my proposed resolution was referred to my own committee
Mhm.
as the primary committee,
Mhm.
Committee on Justice and Human Rights, and as a second committee, the Committee on Public Order and Illegal Drugs, chaired by Senator Ping Lacson. So I thought that should be preceded, the formal holding of the Senate inquiry should be preceded by a privileged speech. So I've been mulling over this, although the initial focus, supposedly the only focus of the intended privileged speech, is supposed to be this spate of
Yeah.
summary killings. But I had to inject some matters of personal privilege because of the relentless, vicious attacks being hurled against me, especially through the social media.
Well, we'd like to ask questions also about that. No? We want to cluster the questions about the social media campaign against you. Social media, online and offline, I would
Yeah.
say. But can we scroll down the prompter, please? I'd like to ask, I think question number 3, from Jerome Toledo. This is related to resolution number 9. You're conducting an inquiry soon. Is this political, since you are part of LP and the legislative leaders are PDP Laban?
Not at all. A matter as important as this, as serious as this, should transcend any political consideration. And is the farthest from my mind doing things with political objective. I'm not that one. I'm not that kind of a
That's also my question,
servant, public servant.
ma'am.
Mhm.
Why you're now obviously at the forefront of the campaign against the summary killings resulting from the anti-drug campaign. Why are you doing this despite the backlash?
It's the right
despite
thing to do. I could have stayed, go with the tide. Also, keep mum
Yeah.
about it, and especially in light of this relentless, persistent, vicious attacks. All sorts of dirt being thrown at me, especially, and masakit yan eh.
Mhm.
Na ang tawag sa'yo, drug lord cuddler, protector, tumatanggap
Mhm.
sa mga convicts. And so, just to put a stop to it, hindi na sana ako gagalaw, hindi na sana ako magsasalita. But this is the right thing to do.
It's
So let's
very
do it.
it's very interesting, ma'am, you mentioned in your speech about the things that you've done with Bilibid when you were still the Justice Secretary. I do remember that we had the Justice reporter, and she would sometimes text us in the middle of the night. There would be a raid in Bilibid. They would be confiscating a lot of things. It's true. I think a lot of people forgot that it was during your term that you started those kinds of things.
Sabi ko nga, binabaliktad na nila lahat. Bakit ganon? Ako nga nagsimula niyan. And, kinasuhan pa nga ako ng mga yan. Until now, those cases are still pending, including an anti-graft case before the Ombudsman filed by one of those Bilibid 19. One or two of those Bilibid 19 inmates. Anti-graft daw because I had no authority daw to transfer them from Bilibid temporarily to the NBI detention facility. And, nandyan yung death threats.
Yeah.
And in fact, right now, there's still the security threat coming from them.
I can only...
And then ito ngayon ang napapala ko. Bigla
You're now
ako
in
ngayong
cahoots with them.
Bigla akong naging protector nila. It's so unfair. It's crazy.
Ma'am, I want to respond to that. I have a question specifically about that. Why are they doing this?
I don't know. Well, marami naman sigurong pwedeng dahilan. Maybe they don't want this Senate inquiry to push through for some reason.
That's why.
Is it possibly connected to what you mentioned earlier, yung death penalty bill?
I don't know. Hindi pa naman siguro. Baka ito lang nga. Because ang perspective kasi nila, ang mindset nila is that kung iimbestigahan yan, then mawawala yung momentum ng law enforcers. Ngayon, ano sila ngayon? Highly motivated sila ngayon with the backing of the powers that be. So, kung iimbestigahan daw, madedemoralize, or that would dampen their resolve. I actually disagree. Kasi kaya nga, gusto ko po na magkaroon ng inquiry na to para alamin natin yung buong sitwasyon. Alamin natin ano ba may problema ba talaga? Bakit ganon? May mga namamatay na hindi nalalaman kung ano yung dahilan. Basta sasabihin na lang it's either ng laban, ng agaw, o yung mga lalo na yung mga cases of salvaging.
Yeah.
Na mga hindi alam kung mga sino-sino gumagawa yan. Nasusunod ba yung mga dapat sundin sa batas, sa mga patakaran, sa mga operational guidelines? Ginagawa ba ng mga relevant authorities, particularly internal affairs unit? That was a good point raised actually by Senator Dick Gordon. He pointed to a particular law which actually mandates that whenever somebody is killed, there is a casualty in a law enforcement operations, automatic dapat na iniimbestigahan. Ganon din kasi sa other jurisdictions like the United States. So tatanungin ho natin yan sa inquiry. Ginagawa ba yan ng Internal Affairs Unit? May kulang ba sa kapasidad nila, sa resources nila, sa mga tao nila na gawin yung trabaho nila? So kasama po dapat yan lahat. That's why they should welcome this inquiry. Gusto ko lang makatulong na above board ang mga yan, alam yung ginagawa ng mga law enforcers para hindi na-taint yung buong kampanya against drugs. Yun po naman ang pinakapunto. So, bakit tayo magiging paranoid na kung ano na yung mga iniisip? Na hindi naman po yun yung pakay ko.
I'm trying hard to think of a previous instance na the Speaker of the House actually pinpointed a senator of the Republic and said we want to investigate her. Tapos kasama pa yung Justice Secretary and now also the Solicitor General.
That's why I had to raise it personal and collective privilege. It is certainly in breach of interparliamentary courtesy. But as I said nga, hindi naman yun ang pinaka-defense ko. Gusto ko, sila mismo, mga kapwa ko, senador mismo, ang mag-raise niyan. Not in defense of Leila de Lima, but in defense of
The institution.
Hindi dapat naman talaga nila yan ginagawa basta-basta na lang. Because we are co-equal institutions, interparliamentary courtesy. And then look at that. Hindi lang naman si speaker ang tumitira sa akin, kung ano-ano mga insinuations. Si Solicitor General, and the latest is the Secretary of Justice. These are the President's men. Now, what am I supposed to think and say about that? Now, these are the President's men trying to discredit a sitting senator.
Senator, that's the question now. You were saying, when you said a while ago that you don't know what they or them, what they're up to, who are you referring to? Do you know who is behind this campaign to discredit you?
Alam nyo, sinabi ko rin po yun. I'm actually giving them, the President's men, the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I suspect na meron mga elemento dyan na sila ang nag-feed, nagsusupply ng mga kasinungalingan na yan. Those fabricated lies, those manufactured lies. Yung mga tungkol dyan, yung mga, cuddler ako, nakikipag-jamming ako sa mga drug lords, nakikipag-party ako sa kanila, tumatanggap daw ako sa kanila. This must be coming from whoever, yung parang mahirap naman kasi magturo. Kasi
So you're not yet sure on who it is?
I'm not sure, but
have you considered
who
the
else?
possibility that it came from like higher office, like Malacanang?
I wouldn't say that at this point. I wouldn't say that. In fact, sana hindi nakakarating yung mga ganyan sa Pangulo. O sana, kung nakakarating po sa kanya, sana hindi siya naniniwala. Kasi I call them agents of vengeance. It could be any of those or some of those na natapakan ho natin. Alam nyo na, ang dami naman natin hinandle ng mga high-profile cases noon, or it could be a confluence of all of this. Ano-ano sila. There may not be a deliberate grouping together and out to get me, but it just happened na nagkaroon na sila ng commonality.
An opportunity, perhaps.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
Commonality of objective to get me.
Senator, maybe just one more question about this drug lord cuddler thing. No, we have a reader with a question. It might sound a little unfair, but maybe it will give you an opportunity to convince this guy. No, aside from the death threats that you've received, no, how can you convince us that you are not? Sorry, prompter, please go up. Number 11. How can you convince us that you are not the protector of the big-scale drug lords? Sorry, but from Chochi Kizo.
May I just tell you straight, if you're here, whoever he is he a male?
It's hard to tell
kayo
from
sa
the...
harap ko, I will look at you straight in the eye and I will tell you that's a complete lie. Why should I be a cuddler of this? Sinabi ko na po kanina, ako nga po yung nag-grade sa kanila, ako yung nagpahirap sa kanila, ako yung nag-isolate sa kanila. And then kinasuhan nila ako. And then now, I'm a cuddler. And then, yun, lininis naman po ang bilibid. Hindi pa completely malinis, pero there have been successive operations, galugad, under the former director and the current director. Director Rainier Cruz. Ako po nagsimula na lahat niyan.
And you said something in your privilege speech about not finding something.
Yeah. The shabula. I had to say that kasi madalas mo natin
Umiikot yan eh.
Madalas mo natin naririnig yan, merong shabulab. Yun nga po ang unang pinahanap ko nung nag-grade kami kasi narinig ko na rin po yan na meron di umano shabulab mismo sa loob. So we had to look for it in that first major raid and in the successive raids. Until now, nakailan na hong raid under the Operation Galugad. Wala naman pong nahahanap na Shabulab. Because, it's unless each and every soul in that penitentiary are in cahoots with each other, hindi naman basta-basta matatago yung Shabulab na aamoy syempre yan. So there is no such thing. Kasi, anong naging problema sa Bilibid? Because these drug convicts were controlling the drug trade from within.
Mm-hmm.
They need not manufacture those drugs from within. If they have to manufacture those drugs, it would be in volumes. Ano nangyayari? May ilan-ilan na nakakapasok ng mga sachet-sachet, dahil sa pakikipagkuntsaba sa mga prison guards, na madali naman kasi silang mga nabibili, nababribe. Nakakapasok ilan-ilan for the personal use of drug inmates who are drug addicts, also are users within. Pero to say na nanggagaling ang droga sa loob at yun ang binibenta sa labas, minamanufacture pa, they don't need that kasi nga dati nang may mga drugs sa labas. Di ba yung sinasabi ng Pangulo na these drugs come from somewhere else? From another country. Kaya nga ini-insist niya, wala daw drug lord, wala daw big time drug lord, na hindi pa ako masyadong nag-a-agree doon. Depende ho siguro sa perspective. Kung sino ba ang big time.
Senator, I think as far as that issue is concerned, we can put paid to that. We're going to take a short break. This is INQ&A, and our guest is quite literally the woman of the hour, Senator Leila de Lima.
Radyo Inquirer.
Hey Manila, this September, all the action and excitement of WWE Live is headed your way. Don't miss Roman Reigns, Alberto Del Rio, the phenomenal AJ Styles, WWE Tag Team Champions The New Day, and all your favorite superstars. WWE Live heads to Manila on Friday, September 9th. Tickets available. For more information, log on to WWE.com.
This is a story about Filipino courage. People who get bullied but never back down. A nation that shows greater strength when faced with bigger foes. Heroes who suffer setbacks but come back better than ever.
Kung ano yung mga sinabi niya, no? Nagsimula yung privilege speech niya. She was very clear about her support for President Duterte's war on drugs. And then after that, she spoke about the demolition job against her. Meron mga pinag-usapan niya yung well-oiled machine ng mga social media operatives. And then after that, she talked about the yung dehumanization, yung desensitization, pwede ba nating sabihin yan, ano? Sa dami ng napatay, parang sanay na tayo, doon siya natatakot yung culture of impunity. And then she asked, is there another way to do this, to wage this war, no? Away from cardboard justice? And then she ended by explaining why she needed to file Senate Resolution number 9. Senator, welcome back, no? I don't want to put you on the spot, but anong sense mo dun sa mga colleagues mo in the Senate? Do they have the stomach for a Senate inquiry on the war on drugs?
I'd like to think they have. I think they have the stomach. And then, but are they willing? Is another question.
Have you
They can
discussed?
do it. I mean, in fact, to be honest about it, yung the fact na may mga nag-express ng reservations about the Senate inquiry for various reasons, like allegedly being premature, and then yung sinabi ko nga na it might dampen the resolve and the spirit of the law enforcers, yung momentum nila masisira, o kaya yung, oh, puro lang naman allegation, may proof na ba kayo? Oh, that's why it's called a Senate inquiry. It's not a court of law na kailangan first may complaint. Kasi meron din unang nagsasabi, wala pa daw mga complaints. Although meron na sa CHR, unti-unti na may mga nagpa-file. Nung una halos wala. Now, so, they're setting forth, they're putting forth various reasons not to proceed with the Senate inquiry. I'm just talking about a handful of senators. I'd like to believe that the majority of the senators would want the Senate inquiry to push through, because it's the matter is so important. We have to really scrutinize everything. I mean, what's happening really in the war against drugs. Why are there so many killings?
Ma'am, have you discussed this with the Senate President? Have you sat down and actually discussed the issue? Is he supporting you on your resolution?
I like to believe he is supportive of the resolution.
Okay. Something you said earlier, ngayon ko lang naintindihan talaga yung consequence. No? You said earlier that Coco Pimentel had actually spoken to the President about his plan to name you Justice Committee Chair. So the President knew.
Yes.
So ganun, ano?
Yes.
Which, if I'm reading between the lines correctly, gives you the courage to say na the demolition job is not actually going all the way to the President. Kasi parang alam naman niya na ikaw may magiging committee chair. Tama ba yung basa ko ba, Senator?
Yes. Kung meron man na ginagawa ang Pangulo, yes, balik ako sa sinabi ko po kanina na baka nga meron lang mga nagbibigay sa kanya ng mga maling impormasyon. Na maybe there are personalities around him na feeding him the wrong information, and also because ang impression kasi siguro ng ilan sa kanila, especially those who really do not personally know me, yung mga hindi mga fellow Bedans. Although Secretary Aguirre is a fellow,
also the President,
fellow Bedan.
Yeah.
In their minds, I think I'm the enemy of the President, that I'm pain in the ass of this administration. In their minds. And therefore, parang ang nasa nila is they're doing a favor to the President, that they're putting me down.
How would you describe yourself, ma'am, in relation to the President? Are you in the pain in the neck, or?
No, I'm not. Kasi kung alam lang sana ng karamihan na marami naman po sa mga plano ng Pangulo na suportado ko. Dito lang kami nagkakainitan, quote-unquote, dito sa mga issues na ito. Death penalty, summary killings, and hindi ko pa nga na-articulate masyado yung tungkol sa lowering of the age of criminal responsibility. But all other plans of this administration, gusto ko po naman. The peace talks, of course, the FOI, and then no to ENDO. Although, hindi naman yung complete end of ENDO. It has to be gradual. There's got to be clear standards. And then, yung anti-illegal mining, especially black sand mining. In fact, I recently filed a bill prohibiting black sand mining. And yung sa anti-human trafficking, and then sa whistleblowers protection, yung witness protection, and no demolition without relocation. anti-red tape measures. Marami akong gusto dun sa mga plano niya, sa mga sinasabi niya. That's why I support him sa mga bagay na yon. So simply because I disagree
On these three issues.
these three issues, kalaban na ako. Yung siguro kasi nasa mind ng mga nakapaligid sa kanya eh. And I hope the president realizes that.
Maybe one last question na lang about the privilege speech, Senator, and then we can go into other legislation that you're preparing. A question from Weng. Senator, do you think that, and I think this is the crux of your...
It's precisely the crux.
Do you think the Filipinos have become apathetic to the killings?
Yeah, to a great extent. That's why we need to do something at this point. And not wait until, kasi sinasabi ko ang national sociopathy. And then, hindi pwede na wala na lang. It would have irreversible effect on the psychology, particularly of the young people, of the children. Growing under an atmosphere or environment that it's okay to kill, that it's okay to see dumped dead bodies in whatever corner. So mali po yun. I don't want to be blamed later by the future generation. Did you do something about it at the time that you could still do something? And yun naman po ang, call it a cliche, but that's how I take things.
There are people who decry what is happening right now, but there are people who are not just apathetic, but who are supportive of the killings, and they probably feel that it's faster to deal with the drug problem. Actually, there was this one person asking, how would you respond to those criticizing on social media, saying that you're undermining the good anti-drug campaign?
Again, may I correct that? I'm not at all undermining. I want to strengthen this campaign by making sure that the law enforcers are not violating the law, are not violating the rights of others. Hindi pwede pong isakripisyo yung mga prinsipyo natin, yung mga nasa saligang batas, nasa Bill of Rights, in the name of fighting criminality.
Senator, as promised, we'll move on to other topics. Meron po kayong Senate Bill number 369, an act institutionalizing a criminal investigation system, repealing for the purpose, and so on, prescribing a uniform system of preliminary investigation. Can you...
That's again one of my contributions to the fight, to the campaign of this administration against criminality. Kasi alam naman ho natin, kaya ganito nangyayari dahil nga frustrated ang mga tao sa takbo ng ating justice system, particularly the criminal justice system. Masyadong mabagal, and yung walang swift delivery of justice. Maraming bottlenecks, and it takes an average of 7 to 8 years to prosecute criminal cases. Sometimes it's more than 8 years. Isa pong nakikita kong bottleneck ay yung mga delays sa preliminary investigation. Why not diretso na tinutulungan ng mga prosecutors, the investigators, in the case build-up of cases? The fusion of the role of the prosecutors on one hand
and the police investigators.
Yan ang sistema sa ibang bansa eh. And then, pag sapat na yung ebidensya, diretso na ifa-file ng prosecutor sa korte, and the court would make the preliminary determination of, gusto ko nga taasan yung probable cause threshold eh, masyado mababa yun. Pwede sanang prima facie or a preponderance of evidence. Something higher than the current threshold of probable cause, but of course lesser than the guilt beyond reasonable doubt threshold. That will hold. That would be the standard during the trial itself.
Can you talk about how much time will be taken away? For instance, if the average is 7 to 8 years for a criminal case, pag naging batas po to, how many years if it will be taken away from?
There will be significant reduction. Baka 2 years, pwede na. As an average.
As an average.
As an average. Although ideally, dapat mga 1 year lang. Pero kung mga 2 to 3 years, that should be an improvement. A marked improvement.
So it would be more of streamlining the investigation. It wouldn't like
Streamlining.
doing away with a necessary step because they would be working together anyway. So
Kasi yung pag-iimbestiga naman ng isang krimen is either may magpa-file ng complaint yung biktima or motu proprio. Because under the law, our law enforcement authorities like PNP, NBI can motu proprio initiate an investigation with or without complaint. So sometimes, marami nga ako noon mga pinapaimbestiga sa NBI, walang complaint, basta ba nababasa sa dyaryo, rini-refer ko na. Ito, pakitingnan ito, lalo na yung mga high profile. And the NBI would investigate, and then they would file the complaint with the National Prosecution Service. Why not at the first instance pa lang? Pag-imbestiga pa lang ng NBI, kasama na yung mga prosecutors. Because prosecutors would know exactly what type of evidence are needed. What evidence is strong or not. What evidence is admissible and competent or not. Tinutulungan na kaagad dapat yung mga investigators para by the time that the case is filed in court, malakas na siya.
Senator, you also filed Senate Bill number 197 to abolish the penalty of imprisonment in libel cases.
Yeah.
That's music to our ears. Can you talk about this?
Well, we all know that under the current law, revised penal code, and even Cybercrime Prevention Act, libel is punishable by imprisonment and or fine. Now, I'm proposing the abolition of imprisonment as a penalty. Now that's why it's loosely called decriminalization, but it's actually a misnomer because you're not totally decriminalizing libel
It's
because
still a
you're
crime.
still imposing
yeah.
a fine. So
Just a
instead of
penalty.
imprisonment, fine na lang. Because kailangan naman talaga palakasin ang freedom of expression, ang media freedom. But we cannot entirely we cannot concede na hindi na dapat pinaparusahan ang libel because meron naman talaga mga excesses on the part of media practitioners. So in those cases na talaga na sumobra ang mga media practitioners, then there is a remedy. They can still the offended party can still file a case, but this time kung found guilty, wala na dapat imprisonment.
Matagal na pong pinapropose yung bill na yan actually, but do you think, what are the prospects of it passing into law, especially like some of the legislators are the ones who are usually the target of some media practitioners?
I will push for the passage of the bill into law because that has been referred to the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. So I just have to convince my colleagues first in the committee and in the plenary to adopt that. But of course I need to ask whether there is a counterpart bill or a similar
House.
bill at the House of Representatives.
Ma'am, I forgot to ask. Sorry to go back to the privilege speech. So you filed Senate Resolution number 9, and the Committee on Rules has referred it back to your committee.
Yes.
Can you talk about timetables? I mean, when would your first hearing be? I mean, do you have some
We're
people in
looking
mind?
at- because this is already first week of August. Now, originally I was looking at second and third week of August. We might have to move it a bit because we will still discuss it first preliminarily within the committee. Kasi under the rules on inquiries in aid of legislation, it has to be calendared also for discussion within the committee. In other words, magdi-decide pa kung itutuloy yung Senate inquiry. But I cannot yet call for that initial meeting ng committee because wala pa kaming committee secretary. So I'm just waiting for somebody in the Senate Secretariat to be appointed as the committee secretary for the Committee on Justice and Human Rights. Kasi siya yung gagawa ng
Akala ko mag-job wanted ad tayo ngayon eh.
notices ng
Advisory.
yeah.
But so it will be coming from the Senate pool, yung
Yes.
secretary.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, who is your vice chair?
Senator Kiko.
And then is Senator Cayetano a member of your committee?
No, I don't think so. I think the minority members in my committee
Mhm.
are Senators Trillanes and Escudero, but not.
Mhm.
Senator Allen is not really minority.
No, yeah, he's floating.
We don't know yet.
Senator, we have a question from Joe Pedro. I don't know how. Again, it's kind of direct, but do you have the courage to expose to the public murderers and criminals in the Philippine government?
Murderers and criminals. Well, of course, kung meron, we need to expose criminals, whether inside or outside government, need to be exposed.
Mhm.
I really don't know what is.
Oo nga, hindi ka. Ma'am, I don't mean to again put you in a spot, but in your privilege speech you said accuse only after you investigate. Pero in the past month, meron ng mga instances na may mga high officials like 5 police generals inaccuse tapos saka pa pala yung investigation. How should we think about this issue? I mean, is a group of senators talking to the president saying maybe this is not the way to do this, or paano ba to? How do we approach this?
Well, I don't intend to pass judgment on the style of the president. Kasi parang yun ang naging, naming and shaming tack niya, just to show how resolute, how determined he is. Because he's a lawyer, he knows that. Yung mga legal presumptions, due process. Many would appreciate that style kasi it instills fear dun sa mga may kasalanan. But what if mga inosente? Now, dun sa 5 police generals, of course, we have read in the papers that about 2 of them meron na daw nakitaan daw na ebidensya. What about the 3 others? Meron din ba? No. In the meantime, napahiya na sila sa publiko. Can you imagine the effect on their family? What if 1, 2, or 3 of them are actually innocent? And even yung sinasabing 2 na nakitaan ng ebidensya, does that mean they're already guilty? Dadaan pa naman sa proseso yan. Ano ba yung mga ebidensya na yan? Tama ba? Totoo ba? So, mahirap mag-ano. So, kudos tayo, hands off tayo sa ganong style ng Pangulo na talagang matapang. Stop,
Ginamit niya rin sa STOP. Ma'am,
maybe subconsciously.
We have less than 4 minutes. If I can ask this question from Diane, maybe aside from the 3 laws that we've, the 2 resolutions, the 1 resolution and the 2 laws that we've discussed here, what law in the Senate would you want to pass that could greatly affect the lives of daily Filipinos?
Marami.
Okay, maybe top 3.
That's very broad. Number 1, really, anti-poverty, and then job generation, and then addressing criminality, and therefore reforming the criminal justice sector. Dun nga dapat muna ang focus. Let's fix first the criminal justice system.
This is actually from the same person. One of her questions was that, why is life imprisonment the best punishment for criminals? I guess instead of death penalty.
Because death penalty cannot be the best solution to criminality. It cannot be. Hindi lang, wala naman talagang empirical evidence, marami ng studies ng leading criminologists na ganun ang conclusion. There is no direct correlation. Maybe initially, but not the overall. And then the period where the period of time that a death penalty is prevails in a particular society or country, wala namang nakitaan na klarado na finding na merong correlation. So it's not really a deterrent. And then ang trend ngayon globally is towards abolition of death penalty. So life imprisonment basta ba is the correct penalty imposed, and it has been imposed swiftly, and a certainty of punishment, swiftness in punishment, and correct service of the penalty. Kaya nga kailangan din natin i-overhaul at i-reform yung correctional system para hindi na uli mangyari yung mga nadiskubre namin noon na they were lording it over, luxurious kubuls, etc. na paulit-ulit sinasabi nila na nawala na nga yun eh. But it is as if it's still the prevailing condition in the bilibid. It's actually part of trying to discredit me na wala naman talaga akong nagawa daw noon. But precisely, it stopped. Nawala na yung kubuls, na dismantle na. Nasa bilibid, nasa building 14 na. Yung mga malalaking drug convicts na yan at binabantayan sila doon. Wala na yung mga kubul-kubul nila. You know, so ganun dapat.
Senator, actually, madami pa kaming gusto itanong but we've run out of time. We'd like to thank you for sharing your time with us. I personally would like to thank you for raising 3 very important questions. One is, what is the threshold for killings? I mean, I think that's a question everybody should ask himself or herself. Second is, when the future generation will ask us, what did you do during this time, this surge in killings? Maybe we should have our own answer to that. And then lastly, what if inosente? No? So, kailangan na tayo magpaalam.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll have to wrap it up.
Yeah. Again, so, Senator, thank you very much for your time. We will be following your work closely in the Senate. And
we're preparing already for Senate inquiry. So I hope the majority in the Committee on Justice and Human Rights would support the inquiry. And they would not do things to block it.
Yeah.
Ma'am, maybe one last quick question. Nung nag-shake hands kayo ni Presidente sa SONA, what was going through your head?
Siyempre nabigla po tayo no, hindi ko po inaasahan yun. But I took it very positively. Parang sabi ko nga, icebreaker yun, and para to tell one and all na wala namang kaming personalan. He would not do that kung pinapersonal niya ako. Ako, I know from ever since di naman ako namemersonal. So through that gesture, he was also able to show to the people na kahit kami nagbabanggaan sa mga ilang issues, hindi naman kami nagpe-personalan sa isa't isa. And that was okay. That was good.
Thank you. Senator Leila de Lima, ika nga, walang personalan, trabaho lang. This has been INQ&A. Thank you and see you next Tuesday.